Okay, Siobhan. So, years ago, I met a woman at a storytelling festival, and we did a dyad together and realized that we had all these sensations and memories of sensation that were the same. And I came home from that weekend away, and this story came, a compendium of our memories and our embroidery of memory. And I can't help but think of this story when I think of you. There's such a beauty and a connectivity to it. So, on your birthday, a story. A run of hawks. The sun was as big and hazy as a summer sky could make it. Millie loved this kind of day when chores were done. She would steal out to the grove at the edge of the field. Why, her brother Merle wouldn't find her until late afternoon. He'd come running down the path. "Millie, Millie, let's go swimming!" And he'd hoot and holler and head up toward the swimming hole just over the hill. It would take him a moment or two to realize she wasn't with him. "There's something wrong with you," he'd yell. And then off he'd go. And Millie, she would hold her position one moment, maybe two, and then she'd roll onto her back to stare straight up at the sky, straight into the sun. Oh, sure, after a while she'd have to raise her arm to shade her eyes just a little. And that's the way the afternoon would pass. Aunt Enid first took Millie to that grove of trees at the edge of the field when she was 5 years old. "Now 5 is a very important age," Aunt Enid said to Millie. "It's time to start looking at things a little more closely." And so they walked out to that grove of trees at the edge of the field. And Aunt Enid threw herself back in the grass and looked up at the sky. And she patted the earth, and Millie threw herself down next to her because Aunt Enid was Millie's favorite person. And she didn't dress like anybody else. In fact, Millie had only ever seen her in a dress for weddings, baptisms, and funerals. And when Aunt Enid wanted to take Millie out to that grove of trees at the edge of the field, well, of course Millie was going. So as they lay back in the grass, Aunt Enid pointed out the clouds wending their way across that summer sky. "Have you ever been cloud watching?" she asked Millie. Millie nodded. "No, never." And so Aunt Enid said, "Look up there, Millie, and tell me what you see." Well, Millie froze. No one ever wanted to know what Millie saw or thought. And she looked at Aunt Enid. "Me?" And so Aunt Enid pulled the girl closer. And she said, "Let me tell you what I see, honey." And she pointed to a cloud, and she showed how it was a knight in shining armor on a steed. And then over there was a ship sailing the seas. And there were pirates fighting on the open water. And then Millie started to say what she saw. And the two would point and giggle and point and giggle. And that's just when it happened. Up from the south it came, gliding on the late afternoon sun. Aunt Enid reached for Millie. "Do you see it?" And Millie looked up, and there was a hawk and another, 3, 4, 5 hawks. "It's a run of hawks, Millie," said her aunt. "You can fly with them, baby." And so the two lay back in the spring grass. And Millie closed her eyes and felt the air rush by her, the wind at that height rushing by her face, and the sun was hotter and brighter, and she knew that if she looked down, she would see... Oh! Millie fell back and back and back to the earth. When she opened her eyes again, Aunt Enid bent over her. "Tell me what you saw, honey." And Millie talked about the wind and how it felt and how bright and warm the sun was. "How?" she asked her aunt. "How do we fly with hawks?" "Oh, not we," chuckled her aunt. "You, Millie. It's a gift, and that gift is for you." The miles and the years passed, and Millie, she came to be a woman who only wore dresses for weddings, baptisms, and funerals. She approached that old house and the screen door on the porch in a dress that she hadn't worn for a long time. Across the way, she heard the men in the barn, the separation of sexes as was the custom in this part of the world. And then she saw her brother on the other side of the screen door. The screen, the years, and the memories separated them. Later that afternoon, when Millie headed out to that grove of trees at the edge of the field, Merle was right behind her. When she stopped, he knelt down and picked up a clod of that rich earth. "Never could plow this land, Millie. It was always yours." And she looked up to hold back the tears, and that's just when it happened. Up from the south it came, gliding on the late afternoon sun. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hawks. She grabbed her brother's arm. "Merle, it's a run of hawks +1. "It's for you, Millie," he said as the tears finally came. "Aunt Enid always said those hawks were for you." Blessings, sister. The hawks were singing this morning for you. May the year completely unfold in this wonderful trajectory that honors you, your birth,